you very much, Frederick. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be here today with you. Okay, so I'm not from the technical community as most of you, so here today, so I will try to work okay in this environment. As Frederick said, so I'm representing today the Council of Europe, and particularly I'm here to speak to you about human rights and what they represent to the Council of Europe. Frederick just told me to tell you what is the Council of Europe and to make clear. So we are an intergovernmental organization of 47 member states, just because many people mix it with the European Union and European Council. So we are Council of Europe, an intergovernmental organization of 47 member states, including the states of European Union, including Russia, and including other states. Today, I will speak mostly about our European Convention of Human Rights, which represent the core of our activities. So our entire activity of the Council of Europe is based on the implementation and the following of the European Convention of Human Rights, a very important text for us, especially for us working with Article 8 that will be discussed today about the right to privacy and family life, and equally the Article 10, the right to freedom of expression. Can we go to the first slide, please? So I will present a few of our instruments. Really relevant, the most significant text for us with regard to the Article 8 is the Convention 108. The Convention 108 was open for the signature in Strasbourg on 28 January 1981. So it's quite an old document which came into force in October 85, and currently it applies to 46 state parties, with the recent ratification by Russia and Uruguay. So it was and still remains the only legally binding international instrument in the data protection field. Under this convention, the parties are required to take the necessary steps in their domestic legislation to apply the data protection principles it lays down in order to ensure respect in their territory for the fundamental human rights of all individuals with regard to processing of personal data. It should be underlined that Convention 108 is open for accession by any country in the world, not only to the member states of the Council of Europe. And indeed, over 30 years ago, its drafters acknowledged the need to geographically expand the protection of personal data. In July 2011, our Committee of Ministers invited the first non-European country to accede to convention, which was Uruguay. Can we go to the next slide, please? The legal rules for handling information under the convention derive from the right to respect for private life, as enshrined in Article 8 of the Convention, of the Convention of Human Rights, that gives everyone the right to respect for his private life, his home, and his correspondence. Further to Article 8, the European Convention lays down in Article 10 the fundamental right to freedom of expression. These rights include explicitly the freedom to receive and impart information and ideas without any interference by public authority, regardless of frontiers. The freedom to receive information set out in Article 10 should be understood as well as the right to seek information. In the conceptual architecture of the Convention, Articles 8 and 10 are not contradictory, but they complement each other. However, in practice, the exercise of one of these rights can sometimes be restricted by the exercise of the other. For this reason, the European Court of Human Rights have defined the case law, the limits to the exercise of each of these rights, and in particular, the extent to which public authorities have the right to interfere. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I will go a bit more in detail to the Convention 108 and its potential, because it's a treaty with legally binding force, as said before, providing legal certainty and predictability in international relations. It formulates a number of core data protection principles drafted in a simple and technological neutral way. The Convention's fundamental standards have stood the test of time, so there are more than 30 years. They have been the basis for the European Union's 1995 Data Protection Directive, reaffirmed in various bilateral agreements and other international instruments of a binding or non-binding nature. For example, the international standards adopted by the International Conference of Data Protection and Privacy Commissioners in Madrid in 2009. The Convention has a cross-cutting scope of application. Back in 1981, it was truly visionary to prepare a single set of principles to be applied to the public as well as to the private sector. The explanatory report points to the fact that the most international data traffic occurs in the private sector and that these terms may have a different meaning in different countries. During the last 30 years, this basic premise was not changed. Only the technical capacity to collect and analyze data have increased exponentially. Today, it is possible for a few globally operating companies to collect in real time almost all traffic data on the internet for commercial purposes, while a similar collection by public authorities for law enforcement purpose would be prohibited under the laws of many countries. There are currently almost 90 countries worldwide that have adopted data protection legislation, and their number increases rapidly. Convention 108 is already now in force for half of the world's countries that have enacted data protection legislation. More importantly, Convention 108 remains the only legally binding standard which has the potential to be applied worldwide, thus corresponding to the call for internationally agreed global standards which come from business and civil society communities alike. It seems unlikely that governments and courts will allow a lowering of our standards. Citizens have legitimate expectations that their personal data is not abused, and governments have a responsibility to protect their citizens' privacy in an increasingly borderless world. This we should as well keep in mind when we heard just a few weeks ago a statement from Google saying that their users should have no legitimate expectancy of privacy when using Google. Only internationally agreed standards can provide the legal basis for the free flow of information and data that we urgently need in our globalized world, bringing legal certainty and predictability to state conduct. Self-regulation and awareness raising is important, but not enough. As the European Court of Human Rights emphasized in many of its judgments, where fundamental values and the essential aspects of private life are at stake, state authorities have a duty to establish an efficient regulatory and enforcement framework of protection. We in the Council of Europe believe in the multi-stakeholder process. In an area where technology, business, and the law are so interwoven, we must bring together all major stakeholders, governments, data protection authorities, private sector, civil society, in new forms of communication, decision finding, and decision making. Transparency and participation are necessary to ensure that our standards will be effectively implemented. Can we go to the next slide, please? But to fully address the challenges posed today, so the Convention 108 needs a modernization, and the process has started. Over 30 years after its opening for signatures, in light of the increasing collection and use of personal data in the new information and communication technologies, it has been decided to review the provision of the Convention in order to better adapt the instrument to new challenges to the right of privacy. The modernization of the Convention has practically two main objectives. First, to fully address the challenges posed by the new technologies, and secondly, to strengthen the evaluation and follow-up mechanism, because the first text had not such provision. Can we go further, please? So the modernization process Thank you. So started in 2011 with a public consultation by all stakeholders. On the occasion of the 5th edition of the Data Protection Day, so 28 January 2011, when the Secretary General of the Council of Europe launched a public consultation aimed at hearing concerns of governments, civil society, and the private sector. This work of modernization had been entrusted to the Convention's Consultative Committee, a body composed of representatives of the parties of the Convention and observers, civil society, EU institutions, other Council of Europe instances. This committee worked intensively on the modernization of Convention 108 in 2011 and 2012 and reached consensus on the modernization proposals, which were adopted in November 2012. With the adoption of the text by the Consultative Committee, the technical phase of the modernization work is thus completed. The Committee of Ministers decided to set up an ad hoc committee on data protection, bringing together the representative of all Council of Europe member states, other parties to the Convention, as well as other non-European states, and entrusted with the task of finalizing the modernization work by formally negotiating an amending protocol to the Convention 108. The decision to set up an ad hoc committee on data protection was made on the basis of the following reasons: providing a high-level intergovernmental forum for negotiating, ensuring consistency and complementarity with the relevant European Union's framework, and supporting the global potential of the Convention 108. What is the future of the Convention? So today, more than 2.3 billion people use the internet. Information technologies, and especially the internet, have changed freedom of expression and information in a particular way. They are connecting people across all boundaries of time, distance, culture, and experience. More people own mobile phones than toothbrushes. Every 60 seconds, 170 million emails are sent, 700 million searches are carried out, 1,500 blogs are posted, and 70 new domains are registered. With more than 750 million members, Facebook population would make it the third largest nation in the world. Online, we share ideas, we build knowledge and understanding, we challenge conventional wisdom, and we create networks for change. People go online to do business and to participate in social and political life, but also for purely private and personal reasons. Some claim that modern information technologies have also profoundly changed our understanding of data protection and privacy. In January 2011, the founder of Facebook said in a live webcast that the age of privacy was over. In May 2011, he attended the G8 summit informing world leaders about Facebook's role in worldwide democratic movements and pressing his own policy agenda, warning against state regulation on the internet. The modernization work of the Council of Europe on the Convention 108 is a priority thus. So Frederick is pressing me. I will speak maybe when we discuss all together about the other work, other instruments that Council of Europe promoted and adopted. So there are a set of texts relevant, as mentioned before, to Article 8 and 10. And just one last reference I would like to make to our Internet governance strategy, which is a policy instrument that practically offers a coherent vision and sustainable vision for the Internet policy that we prepare. But we will speak maybe more in detail during our discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.